man, you have to be ready. Just notice if the British were invading your town. But I'm dressed up particularly from the South Carolina. I would have served with General Francis Marion with his militia that I'll talk later more, or about later. So I would like to go over a couple of things with you. What is patriotism? Everybody has always heard of patriotism, but do you know what patriotism is defined as, word for word? No, this is a dictionary from 1828. Patriotism is defined as the love of one's country, the passion which aims to serve one's country, either in defending it from invasion or maintaining its laws and institutions in vigor and purity. Patriotism is the characteristic of a good citizen, the noblest passion that animates a man in the character of a citizen. There are two words that stand out in the definition of patriotism: purity and good. Where can these words be found? They have a greater depth on things. You go to the Bible. So if you look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 8, it says this: "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." You look at Psalm 34, verse 8. "O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him." Because you have patriotism, but let me ask you this question. Can patriotism be built upon patriotism? No, it cannot. It has to be built on a sure foundation. And where is that foundation found? In the Bible. There is a man who is greatly convicted with teaching morality, and they ensure that it be in America's foundation, particularly geared towards the youth. Do you know who that man might be? Anybody want to take a guess? Sorry? No. Well, sort of not. But this would be back. Well, this would be Noah Webster. Noah Webster. So he was the founder of really the first American dictionary that was published in 1828. It took him 22 years to compose it, given there were other dictionaries, but they were British English. So he wanted one particularly about American English, which, since they're their own nation, he wanted one particularly for America. It took 22 years to compose it. Started in 1806, ended in 1828. During two different wars, which would have been the Barbary War and the War of 1812, 2 trips across the Atlantic, and wasn't caught. But to sum up, the reason why he wanted that dictionary is so that people could understand the definitions of the words coming from a biblical perspective. But earlier, while he was in his mid-20s, he came up with the American Spelling Book. Perhaps you have heard of the Blueback Speller. This is an original copy from the year 1804 that I have with me today. So as you can see, it is leather bound. There's a little bit of glue still left on it, and it's wooden front and back part. So I'd like to read to you this story in this book from 1804. It is the description of a good boy. A good boy is dutiful to his father and mother, obedient to his master, and loving to all his playfellows. He is diligent in learning his books and takes pleasure in himself, in improvement in everything. That is worthy of praise. He rises early in the morning, makes himself clean and decent, and says his prayers. If he has done a fault, he confesses it, and is sorry for it, and scorns to tell a lie, though he might by that means conceal it. He loves to hear good advice, and is thankful to those that give it to him, and always follows it. He never swears, nor calls names, nor uses any ill words to his companions. He is never peevish and fretful, but always cheerful and good humor. He scorns to steal or pilfer anything from his playfellows, and would rather suffer wrong than do wrong to any of them. He is always ready to answer when he is asked a question, to do what he is bid, and to mind what is said to him. He is not a wrangler, nor quarrelsome, and he keeps himself out of all kinds of mischief, which other boys run into. By this means he becomes, as he grows up, a man of sense and virtue. He is beloved and respected by all that know him. He lives in the world with credit and reputation, but when he dies, he's lamented by all his acquaintance. Do you know what the next story is? This would be the description of a bad boy. A bad boy is undutiful to his father and mother, disobedient and stubborn to his master, and ill-natured to all his playfellows. He hates his books. and takes no pleasure in improving himself in anything. He is sleepy and slothful in the morning, too idle to clean himself, and too wicked to say his prayers. He's always in mischief, and when he has done a fault, will tell 20 lies in hopes to clear himself, which is only making bad worse. He hates that anybody should give him good advice, and when they are out of fight, will laugh at them. He swears and wrangles and quarrels with his companions, and is always in some dispute or other. He will steal whatsoever comes in his way, and if he is not catched, thinks it no crime, not considering that God sees whatsoever he does. He's frequently out of humor, and sullen and obstinate, so that he will neither do what he is bid, nor answer any question that is asked him. In short, he neglects everything that he should learn, and minds nothing but play or mischief, by which means becomes, as he grows up, a confirmed blockhead, incapable of anything but wickedness or folly, despised by all men of sense and virtue, and generally dies a beggar. So how's that for some good education? But this is, again, from 1804, Noah Webster's spelling book. They originally came out 1783, I believe, would be the grammar, 1784 would be the speller, 1785 was the reader. These books were later on combined all into one book. And they were used for roughly around about 100 years as America's curriculum. But as you notice, coming from a biblical perspective, in this book, Genesis chapters 1 through 3 are summarized for children. And to read a little bit more in the back, there's a section just called Moral Catechism Questions or Lessons for Saturday. In what part of the Bible are these rules to be found, talking about moral virtue? In almost every part, but the most important duties between men are summed up in the beginning of Matthew in Christ's Sermon on the Mount. So you have the school book. You have the moral foundation laid in the children. Why do you want to start with children, though? Let me expand a little further. Children are the most impressionable. That is why it's the most important thing to raise your children correctly. Because there are those in our government, in our school systems, who have other agendas. To specifically say communism works the same way. And you have to know the signs of what that is. Because these are the children, are the future guardians of our liberties and freedoms, is what George Washington said. If you look at Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5, it says this: Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. In the Bible, it also says to be strong and courageous. It is a good thing to teach your children right from wrong, coming from a biblical perspective, as these men believed. Noah Webster, he said this: all government originates in families, and if neglected there, it will hardly exist in society. The foundation of free government and of all social order must be laid in families and in the discipline of youth, the education of youth, an employment of more consequence than making laws and preaching the gospel, because it lays the foundation on which both law and gospel rest for success. So you look at the family structure. You have the father and the mother. Then you have children. That is the first form of government the child will ever know. But perhaps, I have to say this, what if mom and dad are more concerned being a CEO at a different company and they're not home? It could become more of a broken family because the family structure is not there as well. You look at the founding fathers, many of them had great influence from the parents from childhood, especially all the Testaments are not Rushmore. Majority of them were all homeschooled, and a lot of those founding fathers were. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the parents had a great influence over the children in raising them up in those correct things. Because, do you know, in the definition of education, it says in Noah Webster's dictionary that sole responsibility lies on the parents. It doesn't say teachers, but the parents being the educators of their children. So you think of this responsibility as a God-given responsibility, because if you think the foundation isn't laid there, what will happen? Storms will come in life. There are storms. That is why when you have a building, you want to have it built correctly. You have windows to keep the elements out, you have weather stripping, and all that. But the foundation has to be correct first, or else the structure above is compromised. Have you ever heard of the man who built his house in the sand? What happened when the storm came? It fell down. What about the man who built his house on the rock? It stayed strong. But what did both of these men have in common? Storms. So storms do come, either to a family or to a nation. But you have to have a strong family, which make up a strong community, which make up a strong county, a strong state, then a strong nation. So where does everything start? It starts in the family. That is where strength starts. And as Noah Webster would put it, a young republic starts in youth, going back to the family structure. But jumping a little bit more into history, Francis Marion, he's a brigadier general in South Carolina. And during a time of great need, this would be in the summer of 1780, he gave this speech to his men because they're greatly dwindling on their numbers. But he served as a brigadier general in South Carolina. He was nicknamed the Swamp Fox because he was very elusive. He didn't fight in the normal style of, having lines of men, a continental line. They were militia, so they were all volunteer, and they would fight in a guerrilla war style, hiding behind the trees and bushes, similar to the movie The Patriot. But this is what Francis Marion gave us a speech to his men. It's not the words to express what I feel when I look around upon our diminished numbers. Yesterday, I commanded 200 men who I gloried in, and who I finally thought would have followed me through any dangers for their country. And now when their country most needs their services, they are nearly all gone. And even those of you who remain are, if report be true, quite out of heart, and talk that you and your families must be ruined if you resist any longer. But my friends, if we shall be ruined for bravely resisting our tyrants, what will be done to us if we tamely lie down and submit to them? In that event, what can we expect but to see our own eternal disgrace and the widespread ruin of our country, when our bravest and best citizens shall be hung up like dogs, and their properties confiscated to enrich those villains who deserted their country and joined her enemies, when Cornwallis, Rowland, and Tarleton, after so long plundering and murdering your friends, shall in reward of such services be set over you as your governors and lord lieutenants, with princely salaries out of your labors, when foreign bishops and their hireling clergy shall be poured upon you like hosts of consecrated locusts, consuming the tithes of the fat of the land, when British princes and nobles and judges shall swarm over your devoted country, thick as eagles over a new falling carcass, and when an insatiate king, looking on your country as his plantation, and on your children as his slaves, shall take away your substance every year for his constant pleasures, and to keep you under forever, shall fill your land with armies, and when those armies, viewing you with malignant eyes, shall constantly be insulting you as conquered rebels, and under the pretense of discovering among you the seeds of another rebellion, shall be perpetually harassing and giving up to military execution the best and worthiest of our fellow citizens. Now, my great brethren in arms, is there a man among you who can bear the thought of having to see his dear country and friends in so degraded and wretched state as this? If there be, then let that man leave me and retire to his home. I ask not his aid, but thanks to God, I have no fear about you. I feel, judging by your looks, that there is no such man among us. For my own part, I look upon such a state of things as 1,000 times worse than death. And God is my judge this day, that if I could die 1,000 deaths, most gladly would I die them, all rather than live to see my dear country in such a state of degradation and wretchedness. You know what happened after that? They won. In closing, Francis Scott Key, he said this: the patriot who finds himself in the service of God, who acknowledges him in all his ways, will have a lamp unto his feet, and a lamp unto his paths. Therefore he seeks to establish for his own country and in the eyes of the world such a character as shall not make him unworthy the name of a Christian nation. Thank you. Thank you.